Visit from a Vampire. Part 7. The hum of the car's engine filled the quiet between them as Ethan and Lily drove home. The night still clung to the air, heavy with the echoes of the battle they had just left behind. Ethan stole a glance at Lily from the corner of his eye. She was sitting relaxed in the passenger seat, her dark hair slightly tousled, her expression unreadable as she gazed out the window. It was hard to believe that the same woman who teased him about technology could, moments ago, so easily kill two vampires with the kind of precision that gave him chills. He cleared his throat, breaking the silence. You know, when we're together, just hanging out, having fun, or me showing you how to use a phone, I forget what you really are sometimes. Lily's lips curled into a small, amused smile, but she didn't turn to face him. What I really am. Ethan gripped the steering wheel a little tighter, trying to find the right words. I mean, you're so casual most of the time. You joke, you complain about technology like anyone else. But then I see you fight. The way you killed those vampires tonight so efficiently. It reminds me how ruthless you can be. His voice trailed off, an involuntary shudder running through him. Lily was silent for a moment, her eyes still focused on the road ahead. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer, more reflective. That's a part of me, Ethan. A part I've carried for centuries. You can't survive as long as I have without becoming efficient. Ethan swallowed, his throat tight. He'd seen Lily kill before, but tonight had felt different. Watching her take down those vampires, there was something chilling about how calm she was, how unaffected. And yet sitting beside her now, she seemed almost human. His thoughts tangled as he tried to reconcile the two sides of her. Do you ever regret it? He asked, his voice quieter now, almost hesitant. The things you've had to do? Lily finally turned her head, meeting his gaze. For a brief moment, her dark eyes flickered with something, regret, pain, or maybe just weariness. More than you could know, she murmured. I've done things, cruel things that haunt me. And no matter how much time passes, the past never really lets go. Ethan could hear the weight of her words, the centuries of pain hidden beneath her usual playful exterior. He'd always known there was more to her, but hearing it now, it hit harder than he expected. His chest tightened with sympathy, a feeling that had been growing stronger the more time he spent with her. She wasn't just some powerful ancient vampire, she was haunted. He glanced at her again, his voice softening. You don't have to carry it alone, you know. I want to help you if you'll let me. Lily's expression shifted, a slight smirk returning to her lips, though her eyes were still tinged with sadness. Help me? She chuckled, though there was no humor in it. I'm over 5 centuries old, Ethan. What could you possibly do to help someone like me? I don't know, Ethan said, his brow furrowing. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but just being there for you, maybe that's enough. You're not alone anymore. Lily was quiet again, and this time her gaze softened. She looked at him, not with the teasing amusement she usually carried, but with something more vulnerable. It helps, she said softly, almost as if she were admitting it to herself as well. Being close to someone, a good person, like you, it helps more than you know. Ethan felt a warmth spread through him at her words, a small victory in a way. He'd wanted to reach her, and maybe, just maybe, he was starting to. But he also knew that there were walls around her, ancient and tall, that wouldn't come down easily. You're not as bad as you think, you know, Ethan said, his tone lightening, though there was sincerity in his words. You're ruthless, sure, but you've got a conscience. That's more than a lot of people. Lily's lips twitched into a half-smile, her dark eyes flicking back to the road. You give me too much credit, Ethan, but I appreciate the optimism. After a moment of comfortable silence, the city lights began to flicker into view. Ethan pointed ahead. Almost there. Once we're home, I can show you how to take selfies. Lily glanced over at him, her smirk returning. Oh, you think I'm ready for that? Ethan chuckled. One step at a time. Lily's smile softened as she looked out at the city ahead, and for the first time in a long while, the weight on her shoulders felt just a little lighter. As they neared his apartment, Ethan cleared his throat. Want to come up for a bit? Lily turned to him with a small, amused smile. I thought you'd never ask. They climbed the stairs to his third-floor apartment, the sound of their footsteps filling the stairwell. Despite the ease of the offer, Ethan felt a strange flutter of nerves as he unlocked the door and let them in. The familiar warmth of the apartment embraced him, but the night still felt thick with unspoken tension. Inside, Lily's attention was immediately drawn to his coffee machine, sitting innocently on the kitchen counter. She wandered over and ran her fingers along its edges, her eyes glinting with curiosity. So, this is how you humans stay awake all night, she said, a playful challenge in her voice. Teach me your ways? Ethan chuckled, genuinely surprised. You drink coffee. I thought vampires didn't need, well, anything like that. Lily shrugged, a sly grin on her lips. We don't. But you're always telling me to go with the times. I figured I should at least learn how to make it. You know, for you. Amused, Ethan moved beside her. All right, coffee it is. But don't say I didn't warn you, it's a slippery slope. Lily watched intently as he scooped the coffee grounds and poured water into the machine, her eyes following each step with fascination, as if witnessing some strange ritual. The machine hummed to life, and soon the rich aroma of brewing coffee filled the room. I didn't think this would interest you, Ethan said, glancing at her as she leaned in close, peering at the liquid as it dripped into the carafe. You'd be surprised, Lily replied with a smirk. Besides, you keep talking about adapting. I figured I should try. Ethan chuckled softly, shaking his head. It was strange watching this ancient vampire, deadly and powerful, fiddling with something so mundane. But that was Lily, always full of contradictions. When the coffee finished brewing, Lily poured it into a mug with an air of triumph and held it out to him. One coffee human style, she announced proudly. Ethan hesitated for a moment, glancing at the time. It was late, way too late to be drinking coffee. But there was something so earnest in Lily's expression that he couldn't say no. Smiling, he took the mug from her, raising it in mock toast. I guess I did ask for this, he said. He took a sip, trying not to wince at how strong it was. It wasn't bad, just a little intense, but there was no way he was going to tell her that. Instead, he grinned and nodded, playing it off. They moved to the couch, the mood shifting into something lighter, more relaxed. Lily leaned back, crossing her legs as she surveyed the room. You know, she said, raising an eyebrow, for someone who lives in the digital age, you're pretty old school. A coffee machine, no fancy espresso maker, no cutting-edge tech. Ethan grinned, leaning back into the couch. I'm a hacker, not a barista. Besides, I like the simple stuff. It works. Lily gave him a knowing look. That's what you call being boring. He laughed, shaking his head. Maybe, but it keeps things grounded. What about you? You've seen centuries of trends come and go, yet here you are making coffee for me. Lily leaned forward, smirking. Hey, I'm trying. You should be impressed. I've lived through wars, plagues, and revolutions. And yet, coffee seems to be the thing that sticks. The conversation shifted, becoming more light-hearted as they exchanged playful barbs. For a moment, it was easy to forget the supernatural world that Lily belonged to. She was just a girl, teasing him about his lack of modernity while he tried to defend his simple tastes. The atmosphere between them felt lighter than it had all night, the tension melting away into something close to comfort. At one point, Lily's eyes drifted to a framed photo on the shelf, an old picture of Ethan from back in his hometown. Her lips curled in a mischievous smile as she picked it up. You look different here, she said, her voice teasing. Was this before you became the brooding hacker I know now? Ethan glanced at the picture and laughed softly. Yeah, that's back in my hometown. I thought moving here would fix things. Lily raised an eyebrow, intrigued. And did it? Ethan shrugged, looking down at his hands. Not really. I guess I'm still figuring that part out. Lily set the photo back down, her eyes softening slightly. You and me both. The moment lingered, heavy but not uncomfortable. For all her teasing and bravado, there was something about Lily that Ethan couldn't quite place. A sadness, a weariness that went deeper than the centuries she carried. And yet, here she was, sitting in his apartment, making coffee and joking about the modern world. All right, Ethan said, breaking the quiet. Are you ready for the next lesson? It's time for selfies. Lily's eyes lit up with a playful gleam. Oh? You think I'm ready for that? As the night deepened and the city outside grew quieter, neither of them noticed the shadowy figure watching from the street below. Adrian stood with his hands tucked into his jacket pockets, his eyes narrowed as he watched the apartment lights flicker behind the curtains. So, that's where you live, he muttered to himself, a slow grin spreading across his face. Interesting. Nahiscomo Adam. That's all for tonight. If you enjoy my bedtime stories, please like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for joining me tonight.